How's it going, everyone? I hope you're having a good day. Today we got some pretty crazy stories that I know for a fact that you will enjoy, so sit back, relax, subscribe to the channel if you're new, and let's just simply get into it. We're going to call the subscriber who submitted this Liam. So Liam was a freshman in college, and Liam and his friend, who we're going to call Adrian, they went to a college that was close to where he lived. So basically what would happen would be that, Liam and Adrian, they would go to school on the weekdays, and then they would just go home on the weekends instead of getting housing, just because housing is is significantly more expensive. And most colleges, you live far enough away that you need to pay for the housing or just make sense to. But anyways, Liam and Adrian, they went to a college that was simply close enough, and the fact that they had a car was pretty helpful. That they just kind of went back home, and so on the weekends, whenever they wanted to hang out with friends or anything, they could drive people around, they could drive people back to their house, and it actually kind of became a bit of an asset because some people were stuck on campus in the dorms, which the dorms are totally fine. I live in dorms in my college, and they're chill, right? It's totally fine. However, it can be a little better to go back home. You don't have to worry about supervision. You can do what you want. Look, a house is going to be nicer than a dorm 8 out of 10 times, I would say. Sometimes dorms can be pretty nice, or you know how that goes. But anyways, one of these nights, right, Brian was invited over by his friend Adrian because his friend's dad was out. Adrian's parents were divorced, so his mom lived in another state, and he went to go see her every couple weeks. But he mostly lived with his dad because his dad lived really close to the college that Adrian was going to. And Adrian's dad was going to be out for the weekend, so Adrian decided to invite Brian and a few other friends over to his house. So Brian got over there, he drove in his car, he hopped in, and Brian walked up to the front door, rang the doorbell, and was greeted by Adrian and some other people. Half the people in the party, Brian kind of recognized. The other half he didn't know as well, but they were either friends in the neighborhood of Adrian, or they went to the school that both of them went to. So either way, it was a good atmosphere. Even when you don't totally know people, as long as you know a few people at a function or a gathering, and you're good on your feet, that stuff can be really cool. It can be really nice. One thing that's important to the story, though, is while they were having a conversation, something came up about, Adrian, are you looking for someone? I think specifically what happened was one of the guys that Adrian invited over was like, hey, everyone here, turned to Adrian, turned to Brian, and anyone else who was a guy, I have a friend. Her name is Kate. She lives close to here. She's beautiful. She's nice. And she's looking for someone. If you're looking for someone, just let me know. And this friend kind of turns to Adrian and kind of presses him. Is like, hey, I really think you should, I really think that this girl's perfect for you. You should give her a shot, I think it would be great. And Adrian, instead of saying, no, I just don't want to, because that's totally fine. You can just say no in these situations, but Adrian, instead of just saying no because he didn't want to, Adrian kind of said, no, man, I can't, I already got a thing going, thanks anyways. And Brian, who's friends with Adrian and is pretty close, had no idea that that was a thing. So Brian's like, oh, dude, you never told me. And other people at the party who are also pretty close with Adrian are like, yeah, wait a minute, he didn't tell me either. Well, hold up here. Are we, you're not the only one who doesn't know. And, Adrian's like, all right, guys, you're all my close friends, right? But this one, I got to keep it a secret for a little bit longer. So Brian, the subscriber, is like, dude, you can't be doing that. That's crazy. Look, we're close. What could really be the worst that happens? And Adrian's like, guys, chill out for a second. You're going to know. That's totally fine. Just cool it for a second. Don't, chill out. I'm just not going to tell you. And Brian, the subscriber, was like, all right, whatever. That's fine. Brian thought it was a little weird in his head. Why is my friend Adrian being so weird about this? Why is he being so defensive? What's the worst? Maybe Adrian was insecure about, the person he was dating and he didn't want his friends to know. But the thing is, Brian knew that, Adrian was a cool guy who just would never do that. He wouldn't really care. He would always be fine with that. That just didn't seem like something in his character. So Brian was really weirded out, but he didn't think anything. He didn't think much of it. So skip forward to the end of the night. Everyone else was leaving. However, Adrian said like, hey, Brian, you're allowed to stay on my couch. For some reason, I don't know exactly why, Brian couldn't, like, he couldn't be in the dorms, but he didn't sleep in the dorms. And for some reason, his house was, he couldn't sleep in it. I don't know exactly why. Or maybe he just wanted to, like, chill with Adrian. Who knows? But for whatever reason, Brian is sleeping on Adrian's couch. And everyone's left at this point. Adrian went upstairs, and, it's 2 in the morning. So Brian's been asleep for about a couple hours now, and he's awoken by, a sound of footsteps. And at this point, right, it's 2 pairs of footsteps. So Brian's really starting to freak out a little bit. Because at this point, he's thinking, okay, like, I'm really the only one. Like, it's really just Adrian and I in the house. I know Adrian's dad is gone for the weekend. That's the reason why Adrian was able to have so many people over. Normally, Adrian's dad was, like, cool with, like, 1 or 2 people coming over and, like, hanging out in the basement of their house. But Adrian's dad, like, in no way would ever be okay with, like, 8, 9, 10 people or whatever coming over. That was the main reason that he was able to have so many people there that day. Because, like, there was no way that would have normally happened. But, sure enough, like, Brian's sitting there. He's on the couch. He's just kind of feeling kind of weird because there's these noises. He doesn't know why, and he's just weirded out by it all. So he kind of gets up, and the noises are of 2 footsteps are walking towards the kitchen. And the thing is, the couch is like or the living room with the couch on it with the TV is where currently Brian is sleeping, and it is right across from where the kitchen is. So Brian can see very clearly, he can see very clearly what's going on. And so Brian sees Adrian and this woman, right? This woman. And he's like, so in Brian's head, he's chilled out, he's relaxed. He's like, okay. So, like, this must be the secret, like, girlfriend that, like, Adrian's with. I don't know why he didn't want to tell me who she was. But whatever, right? So Brian tries to, like, go back to sleep. He kind of closes his eyes. He hears them talking a little bit. What probably happened was either Adrian or, this mysterious girlfriend, who I'll reveal in just a second, probably got thirsty, wanted to get some water. You know how the situations go, right? At this point, right, Brian is kind of just like, you know what? Screw it. I want to know who this girlfriend is. I'm going to walk into the kitchen and pretend that I don't know what's going on. Like, I'm just going to pretend that, I didn't know someone was down here. I just want to get some water myself. So Brian gets off the couch and he, like, walks over to the kitchen. He's pretending to do so, like, nonchalantly, not trying to sneak up or anything, because he wants it to seem like he doesn't really know. So Brian walks into the kitchen. He's like, oh, Adrian, didn't see you here. I was just coming to get some water. And that's when Brian turns and looks. And he gets it because, like, before it was way too dark for Brian to really see who was standing there. But that's when Brian got a good look at who Adrian was with. And it completely blew his mind. Like, he was like, wait a minute, I think I have eye problems. Real quick, if you made it this far into the video, comment teacher down below. That'll be the secret word of the day. I'll try and heart a bunch of comments of people saying teacher. And also, if you want to support the channel, the best way you can do that is just by sitting down and watching more of these videos. If you sit down and watch a bunch of videos in a row, you can do that. I have playlists on my channel for story times and also specific stories. Let me know in the comment section how you're doing that, like how many videos you watched, what you're doing while watching my videos, as I really do appreciate it. And just so you know, for the people who want to listen on the go, all these episodes are on Spotify. In fact, basically every day you will get the videos on Spotify 1 to 2 hours early. So even if you're not a huge Spotify listener, there's an incentive. It's the first link in the description. Please rate 5 stars and follow if you can. Trying to grow it a little bit on Spotify as well, so I would appreciate that. Use code ConnorPugs for 10% off gamer subs. Submit stories to my Instagram or Twitter. They're both ConnorPugs, and let's just get right back into it. So anyways, right, Brian is just, like, looking at this woman, right? He's looking at this woman, and he thinks that his eyes are deceiving him. But his eyes are definitely not deceiving him. And after a second, he knows for a fact that, who he's seeing in front of him is exactly who is truly in front of him, right? Like, who he sees in front of him is exactly who he thinks it is. It was his teacher, Miss Davenport. Both Adrian and him went to the same college, and they only had one class together. It was an English class. And they had a teacher who was on the younger side. Miss Davenport was probably like 28, 29. So on the younger side of teachers, because you get professors that are 70, 80 years old. She definitely wasn't like a college student, but she was, one of the younger teachers there. And Brian always thought that, like, Adrian and, Miss Davenport got along really well. But yeah, Brian didn't realize that by get along really well meant get along really well with like huge quotation marks. So Adrian's like, shoot. And Miss Davenport turns to, Adrian. He's like, you didn't tell me that there was another student here. And Adrian's like, dude, I didn't think this was going to be a problem. I thought he was asleep. And Brian's like just standing there so awkwardly. Like, and he speaks up. He says, hey, like, I didn't see anything. I don't need to see anything. I just came in to get some water. Like, I didn't see it, right? I didn't see anything. So Brian walks over, gets some water, and Adrian and Miss Davenport are just bickering back and forth. She's like, I told you I would never come over if there was another student here or someone who would know. You know how much trouble I can get in if anyone knows. And Adrian's like, dude, I'm sorry. I was wrong. He was asleep. He's my friend. He was asleep on the couch. And Miss Davenport's like, you should have told me this. You should have let me know. So yeah, Adrian's like, or Brian's like, oh, jeez, like this is so awkward. Gets his water, walks back to the couch and just sits there. He tries to fall asleep right away, but he can't. He's just up for like an hour, basically, at 2 a.m. And just thinking, he's just like, oh my God. Oh my, that's Miss Davenport. That's her college teacher. Like, this isn't, like, are you serious, right? So yeah, just to make it real clear, like Brian and Adrian, they're both over 18, so there's nothing like really, really bad going on, but it's still against the rules for teachers to do anything like that with students, or like just because the power dynamic and stuff like that. Maybe it depends per college, but it is pretty clearly at this college, like, no, you can't be doing that. So the next day, Brian wakes up and he gets up and sure enough, Miss Davenport is sitting there with Adrian at like the breakfast table, and most likely Miss Davenport would have left at like 3 a.m. or something, or she would have left before Brian would have woken up. But at this point, I think she was just like, screw it. Like, the kid already knows. I'm just going to stay for a breakfast because I'm not feeling like making breakfast. Like, I'm just not doing that. Like, it's totally fine, whatever. So anyways, Brian is sitting at the table, and it is the most awkward situation ever. So Adrian is like fixing up breakfast. He's like, He's like, hey, Miss Davenport, you want like a smiley face pancake? And she's just like glaring at him. Miss Davenport is not happy. And she's understandably not happy because, yeah, another student knowing about this kind of jeopardizes the whole situation. It was already kind of a weird situation. I mean, look, Miss Davenport was like, if she got caught, it would have been pretty tough, right? So anyways, Brian eventually speaks up and says, hey, like, just so you know, it's not like I'm going to tell anyone, right? It's not like I'm going to tell anyone. There's no reason for, like, Miss Davenport, I like you as a teacher. We've had a good time in the class. Like, obviously, Adrian's one of my closest friends. I can now understand why he wasn't telling anyone about who he was with. But just so you know, like, there's no reason for me to, like, turn you in. And Miss Davenport's like, I'm really glad you're saying that. You know how much trouble I'd get in. Like, I really don't think we're doing that much wrong. Sure, we have this power dynamic. And, like, yeah, I'm a teacher. He's a student. So that's always a little weird. But it's mostly just a rule at the school that I just can't be doing that. So, Brian's like, okay, whatever. I don't really care. Just, like, I'm not going to bring it up to anybody. I know how that stuff spreads. I just want to let you know that I'm cool. I'm not going to do anything like that, and you're fine. So Adrian, like, turns to Miss Davenport. It's like, it's what I've been saying. It's what I've been saying. He's cool. Miss Davenport's like, well, what if he wasn't? What, you don't always know your friends like that. Like, I'm glad that he's like this, but the next time this happens, Adrian's like, the next time it's not going to happen, Miss Davenport, we're good. Skip ahead to the rest of the school year. They had about a couple months left of class because this happened like February or something. And surprisingly, Brian saw a pretty good increase in his grade. Brian was a pretty solid B student in that class, and then all of a sudden, he left the semester with an A-. He was getting good marks on his grades and stuff, and while it wasn't an explicit bribe, Brian was definitely like, well, I'm going to take it. Like, I mean, there's no proof it's a bribe. Yeah, maybe I get in trouble if someone here's the thing. I'm going to plead ignorance, and I'm going to keep getting my good grades. So we're going to skip over to the second story. Yes, there are two stories that are very similar to each other that basically are the same title. And this time, let's call the subscriber who submitted the story Liam. So Liam was at the mall, and he was with his friends. And Liam had graduated high school by this time. In fact, Liam was getting close to about midway through his college. Like, he was done with his sophomore year. This was summertime. He was back in his hometown. So he was significantly older. I mean, older than he was in high school, obviously. And anyways, Liam was at the mall, and he was just in one of these stores, and he hears something say, "Liam, is that you?" And he turns around, and it's Miss Davenport. Remember, these are totally different teachers. I just use the name Miss Davenport because this is what I do, right? So Liam's like, "Oh, Miss Davenport, like, oh my God, like I haven't seen you in forever." So for context, Liam was in when he was a freshman, he had Miss Davenport for history. She was his history teacher. Liam was always a pretty good student. Like, Miss Davenport and him like got along, but they were never like super close. Like she was just like his teacher, whatever. And Miss Davenport goes up to him and is like, "Liam, like, it's been so long. Like, you got to tell me, how's college? How's your life going? Like, I want to hear all about it." And Liam was like, "All right, yeah, of course. Like, college has been great. Met some really good guys. Like, I joined this fraternity. Like, life's really good. Like, next summer, like, I think I'm going to get this internship. Like, it's really looking good right now. Like, for this summer, I'm honestly just chilling. I'm seeing my friends. Like, I'm just happy about how things are going." And Miss Davenport's like, "That's so awesome. Like, I gotta go, but do you want to go out for like, I don't know, want to go out for like dinner or something just so we can catch up?" And Liam's like, yeah, sure. That's cool. Like, I'd love to do that, right? And so Miss Davenport's like, "All right, let me just get your number." So Liam gives her number, and that's that. And the thing is, right, Liam doesn't really think of this as like a date because he's like, "Oh, I'm just catching up with my teacher, like whatever, that's totally cool." However, Miss Davenport saw it a little bit differently. So sure enough, right, he gets a text later that day from Miss Davenport being like, "Hey, what days work this week?" And Liam's like, I don't have a ton of plans. I'm kind of open. Like, I mean, how about tonight?" And Miss Davenport's like, "Then it's a date." So Liam kind of looks at that text for a second. It's kind of like, did she mean what she said there? Because, like, dude, like, when you say, it's a date, I've used that phrase before when it's not been a date, right? I don't go on a lot of dates, man. I'm working on it. But, yeah, I've used, like, then it's a date and not, man, it's, like, a date. However, like, it's a little different when it's a guy and a girl, or, if you're into, like, same sex or whatever. If it's, like, someone that you're attracted to, and you're saying it's a date and you're going out, right? That's a little bit of a different connotation. It doesn't necessarily mean that, but there's a little bit more to that. You know what I mean? There's a little bit more to that. And Liam was kind of picking up that maybe there was something more to this. However, he's like, "Oh, whatever. Like, I had her as like a teacher, like whatever, a long time ago." She's like, okay, so when Liam was in high school, this was probably one of the youngest teachers there. Like, she was like in her early 20s. So she was like in her late 20s, maybe early 30s now, but there was still a big enough, like, I don't know. Liam was just like, "There's no way, right? She's just my teacher." So anyways, Liam gets there, he drives over to the restaurant, pulls up, and, he pulls up at the same time as Miss Davenport. And Miss Davenport walks over and she's like, "Oh, Liam, like, I'm so excited, like, oh, like, I'm so happy to see you here." And so anyways, he's like, "Yeah, this place is really great. I love to go here." And she's like, "Oh man, I love this too. Like, me and my ex-boyfriend used to go here all the time." And Liam's like, "Oh, ex-boyfriend?" She's like, "Yeah, we kind of just broke up recently. It's unfortunate, but yeah, it's tough, but that just happens in life, man." And Liam's like, "Yeah, okay, I'm sorry to hear that. Like, that really sucks. Like, are you seeing anyone else now?" And Liam was low-key kind of just testing the water, and she was like, "No, of course not. Like, yeah, of course not." And that's when Liam was kind of picking up, like, okay, she just said it's a date. She also was just like, "Of course not," because the way that Miss Davenport said, "Of course not," it kind of implied like, of course it's not a date, because if it was a date, if I was dating someone else, then why would I be here? Anyways, though, Liam ignores it. He's like, "Whatever, I love this restaurant. Miss Davenport was cool. Like, I don't know, I have nothing else to do tonight. I'm going to ignore these red flags and just keep going with it." And so anyways, they walk inside, they sit down, they order something. And Liam and Miss Davenport have like a great conversation. Liam's having a ton of fun asking like, "Oh, what's happening at the school?" Miss Davenport, since now that, he's no longer a student, is telling him all like the details, telling him all like the secrets or whatever. Like, oh my God, like all kind of like all the gossip that's been going around the office. So they had a principal change his Liam's sophomore year. Liam asked, like, never knew, like, why. He thought it was just like the principal wanted to do different things. Apparently the principal was having an affair, so that was like crazy story. Liam was like, oh my God, this is insane. And towards the end of the night, right, Miss Davenport is like, you know what, Liam, this was such a great night. Would you like to have another one of these? And Liam, at this point, Liam admitted to me over DMs that he was a little dense here, but he still didn't totally realize what this was. Liam was really thinking like, oh, like, shoot, sure, like, whatever, that's cool. Like, I'm cool with that. Like, yeah, this was fun. And in Liam's head, he was just thinking like, oh, whatever. Like, this was a fun night with a friend. It's cool. So, Miss Davenport, is like, all right, I guess I'll see you. And he's like, yeah, I'm free tomorrow night. She's like, sure. Then it's a date. And now she says it like in person. And Liam is starting to realize more and more that when she says it's a date, she means it's a date. Because she kind of gives him a little bit of a wink, kind of gives him a bit of a smile. And in the back of Liam's head, he's like, all right, dude, like, let's maybe plant some seeds here that we're just like chilling as friends. So Liam's like, yeah, okay. He gets in his car, he drives back home. So he's on his bed, he's just like on his couch. He's throwing up like Hulu or Netflix or something. He's just kind of chilling for the rest of the night. And he gets a text from his phone, and it's from Miss Davenport. And she's like, hey, like, I know that, our date's tomorrow night, but I just want to let you know that, like, here's my address. And Miss Davenport drops her address. And Liam's like, okay, cool. Thanks for the information. And that's when Miss Davenport says, just so you know, like, I'm around all night if you want to come over. And that's when Liam's like, oh, no, dude. Because here's the thing. You can kind of play off the other stuff. But the other stuff, like the whole it's a date, of course I don't have a boyfriend, the kind of flirtatiousness, asking for a second kind of meetup like that. Like, sure, maybe one meetup with like an old teacher or old friend or whatever. You're not sussed out by that, but definitely when they ask for a second one, it's a little bit like, okay, like, didn't we just catch up? And then when she says like, here's my address, slide if you want to. You already know that something's going on, right? You already know that something's up. So at this point, Liam is starting to realize, what's going on. And Liam also admits the next thing he does isn't like not that it's not mature, but it's also just like he admits that it's not like the best thing to do. So what Liam does is, he's like, he ignores that text. And, he doesn't have his read receipts on, but he probably should have. And then the next morning he wakes up, he sends a text being like, I'm so sorry, like, I totally forgot. I'm going out for a couple days with my parents because they're back and they're happy that, I'm back and they want to see me. Like, let's meet up another time when I'm back. And so Ms. Davenport's like, that's totally fine. Just let me know with a winky face. And Liam's like, oh, God, this is weird, man. Because the thing is, right, maybe in any other occasion, Liam would have been, like, fine with going with this because, Liam doesn't mind like an older woman. He's got a little bit of young gravy in him, but if you get that reference, you get that reference. But at this point, Liam's like, nah, I can't shake the fact that she was my teacher. Like, that's way too weird. And was what this teacher was doing weird? Yeah, I think so. If like her and Liam were like really close, this would have been much more messed up. But the thing is, Liam and this teacher were never that close. She just like had him for like a couple semesters. They never really talked or anything. In fact, Liam kind of thinks that she threw him out of her class at one point. But at the end of the day, Liam was still totally weirded out by it. He's like, nah, I can't, man. Like, I just can't. So, after a couple days, Miss Davenport sends him a text. And Liam's just chilling at his house, and he gets his text when he's, like, supposedly on vacation saying, when are you going to be back? And Liam trying to like be, he's not trying to be like he's not trying to be mean about it, but he's also not trying to be, he can't be upfront. He feels too weird. So instead he's like, you know what, I'm sorry to ghost, but I'm probably just going to have to ghost her. And sure enough, after Miss Davenport sent that text, Liam just ignored the text. And a couple days later, she sent a question mark. And after Liam ignored the question mark, I think Miss Davenport kind of figured out what was going on. She stopped texting him, and that was the last text he ever received from her. But yeah, Unfortunately, Liam was like a year later, was in the grocery store and saw her in one of the aisles, and they made really, really awkward eye contact and just went two separate ways. Like they just tried to avoid each other, and thankfully they didn't like meet up in the checkout aisle and they're like right behind each other or something. But yeah, so that was the second awkward story. If you want to support the channel, watch another video, and bye.